Welcome to the You Are Worthy Network, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm your host, Steve Wormer, and I'm excited to be with you today. I'm excited to introduce you to my new friend and an incredible human being. And she's going to be an awesome guest. But you know how I roll. Not quite yet. Not quite yet. Hey, I want to tell you, just in case you haven't heard, which is hard to believe if you've been in here at all. It's all over the place. I've got my first event coming up in a couple hours, and it's with my friend Christy Dees. We're going to be teaching on you are worthy of the next step. Whatever that next step is to you, maybe it's writing your first book, maybe it's starting an LLC, maybe it's starting a podcast, maybe it's crafting your first keynote. Maybe it's none of those, but something else. Maybe it's about taking steps towards a promotion. But I know this when I said that, something came to your mind right away. And something has held you back, whether it's confidence or lack of, whether it's imposter syndrome, perfectionism, whether it's waiting until you got the next degree. There's something that's holding you back from that next step. And that's where we want to help is give you some strategies to get some momentum to take that next step because you're worthy of the next step. All that being said, we go live at 3:30. The links are all over the place in here on my personal site. Just wanted to put that out there. Thank you for being patient with me, Pam, while I put that out there.
Okay.
Let me tell you about Pam because that's why we're here. Pam Rivet is a faith-based speaker and the founder of MBS, The Woman Beyond the Cape, a faith-based women's athleisure, I don't know if I said that right, brand for women who are ready to walk in who God actually made them to be. But Pam's story did not start there. She spent years building her life on a foundation that was cracked from the start, struggling with drinking and searching for identity in places that could never hold her. She hit rock bottom before she found solid ground. And it was there in the rebuilding that she discovered the truth that now shapes everything she does. What we repeat is what we reinforce. What we reinforce is what we believe. And what we believe is what we live. Today, Pam pours that truth into MBS, into her personal platform as a speaker and coach, and into the women she reaches every single day who are trying to figure out their worth. She's here to talk about daily affirmations, scripture, identity, and why remembering who you are isn't a one time moment. It's a daily practice. Oh, I've got so many questions. Pam, welcome to the You Are Worthy Network.
Thanks, Steve. I'm so excited to be here today. What your audience may not know is that I have used to have my own podcast and I've done many podcasts over the last several years. However, I had to take a bit of a break from podcasting. So I have not sat in as a podcast guest in probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months. It's been quite a while. So this is the first, and I'm so excited. I'm so blessed to have this opportunity. I told you that when you reached out to me, that it is this podcast, this type of podcast, and specifically what your podcast is all about. Because as I am now in a place in this season where I can step back into doing podcasting, this is the absolute perfect place for me to step back in. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Well, that means a lot to me. And just so you guys know, just a little teeny backstory. I actually reached out to Pam on LinkedIn, and it was at a time I was in Facebook jail, and they never told me why. They never told me how long. They never even used, well, obviously they're not going to use that terminology, jail, but I could see messages, I could create posts, I could still interview people, but I could not respond to their messages to me in Messenger. And then I couldn't initiate messages either. And it drove me nuts. but lesson learned, right? There's other platforms and always have more than one resource. And so Pam was one of the first people I reached out to on LinkedIn. I'm so glad you accepted. Pam, tell us, I tell people all the time one of the benefits of having a group that's almost 18,000 people now is there's people that are potentially going to watch this over the next 30 days all over the world. What corner of the world do you call home?
I am in South Louisiana. And when I say South, I am way South Louisiana. A lot of people think that New Orleans is South Louisiana. However, there is further south, and that is where I'm at. My backyard is literally the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm in a small town called Thibodaux, Louisiana.
That is deep south for
Yes.
sure. And who do you do life with there in southern Louisiana?
I am married to my husband, Corey. We've been married, actually, coming up next month will be 5 years that we've been married. I have three daughters and two grandbabies as well. And my husband, I have three bonus children as well. So I have three daughters. He has two sons and a daughter and two grandbabies.
Nice, very nice. And so when y'all are together, what do y'all like to do for fun?
Well, if you ask my husband, he's going to say fishing because he loves to fish. And so I'll go fishing with him sometimes. We're obviously South Louisiana here. We do a lot of fishing. Everyone owns a boat. And if you don't, you find a place to fish or a friend who does, right? But myself personally, if I'm being very honest, people ask me this question, and for a little while, this question was hard for me to answer. What do I do for fun? Because when most people talk about work and they say that it is their passion and things like that, that truly is what I do for fun. For some people, they look at that and they think that's kind of weird. I do also have a passion for working out, so I do work out quite a bit as well. But in my free time, I do spend a lot of time reading or researching or just building, whether it's MBS or on the personal brand side, and just figuring out new and different ways that I can help people. That is what I do in a lot of my free time. And of course, I do have a very, very tiny, small circle, and will make time to spend some time with those people as well.
Absolutely. So before those that are going to watch this or watch it regularly, they know what I'm about to do. They like, Steve's about to take her back into the time machine. But before we go on the time machine, let's have a little fun. I'm going to give you a choice of two options.
Okay.
Don't overthink it. If the answer's both, we'll let you get away with one or two of them, but really try to pick one or the other, and let's see how it goes. Rock music or country music?
Country.
Small town or big city?
Hmm. Big city.
Read the book or watch the movie?
Read the book.
Books or podcast?
Books.
Early bird or night owl?
That is depends on the season that I am in. Lately, it has been really late night owl, and other seasons I'm up at 4 in the morning. So it just
Let's
depends on
let's
the
let's
season.
define what really night owl is. So as of late, how late?
Go watch my TikTok that I posted last night. That I literally got a text message from my husband after 11 p.m. because I hadn't texted him. He was working nights last night, and I hadn't texted him yet to tell him I was going to bed, and he said, "Are you still cleaning?" It was 11:40-ish, and I said, "I told you I was doing a deep clean today." I did not finish cleaning my house until I think I got in bed. It was a little after 1, and that was because I was doing a what I like to call a spiritual cleansing of my house. And so as I was cleaning, I was praying over my house. So I actually posted a TikTok video of that.
So that's good.
It was late.
I was up till that late too, so I get it. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Hmm. Drive or fly?
Drive.
Cook or take out?
Take out all day long.
All day long. Okay. Okay. I We got a little insight there. Now we can jump into the time machine. So I want you to go back to your high school years, specifically, let's say high school graduation is on a Friday. This is Tuesday afternoon, 72 hours away. You've got the cap and the gown. Maybe you've got the class ring. Maybe Pam's been put in charge of getting the beach ball and get those festivities started off on Friday night. Where's your mindset? Like, are you in that space of, oh my gosh, I'm gonna miss this place. This is what I'm used to. I guess I better get a job. I guess I better try to adult a little bit. I don't know what I'm gonna do in the fall, but I'll figure it out. Or on the far end of that spectrum, get me out of here. Like this 72 hours is going by so slow. I'm tired of this place. I've got my job this summer. I'm going to work it. I know what I'm going to do in the fall. Let's go. Or you somewhere in the middle. There's no right or wrong answer. I just want to know where you were.
I love this question, and I might shock you because I don't know if we even talked about this at all. And I talk about my early life very often, but I only talk it in one very tiny aspect, not necessarily high school graduation. So the week of high school graduation, I was busy packing up all of my things and getting myself prepared, printing my MapQuest, right? Remember them days? Printing my MapQuest and packing up a U-Haul because I was taking myself and at the time my almost 3-year-old daughter, and we were leaving the day after I graduated high school to move to North Carolina to be with who was my husband at that time because he was in the military. So we were moving to Jacksonville, North Carolina to Camp Lejeune to go and be with him, even though he wasn't even there yet at the time. He was actually deployed to Iraq and he was going to be returning in, I think he came back in September that year or November, one of the two. I can't remember. But that is what I was doing. I was ready to get away from Houma, Louisiana. I was packed up and ready to go.
Wow. And so you
Literally
were,
the day after graduation. After graduation night, I woke up very, very early the next morning because I was doing it a 1 day drive and it was a 15 or 16-hour drive. And my cousin was driving the U-Haul for me and I was driving my car and we woke up very early and took off.
wow, what a visual. So your cousin's driving in front of you, you and your 3-year-old daughter in the car behind, and a 15-hour drive starting a whole new life on the other
Yep.
side, well, almost the other side of the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
Day after graduation, I was packed up and ready to go. I was ready to leave because I was in a place where, so obviously she was almost 3. So I had my oldest daughter when I was 15 years old. And in my senior year, especially, I was in the mindset of I do not want anyone to be able to tell me what I can or cannot do anymore. And that was what I ran with. I've always been and still am today a very independent woman. And I am very strong-willed and I am very headstrong. And I wanted to make my own decisions. And that is what I did. So,
That's amazing, but it also shows how disciplined you are because to be able to still get your diploma, three I'm assuming 3 more years of school after you had her, that takes a lot of commitment, discipline too.
my daughter knows this, and I've told her this many times. As she got older, I was able to tell her these things. She saved my life, genuinely. Because at the time that I got pregnant for her, I was ninth grade in junior high, and I was not by any means going down a good path. I was hanging out with the wrong people, doing all of the wrong things. And if I'm being honest, had she not come into my life, had not God not blessed me with her at that time in my life, over 80%, close to 90% of the people that I was hanging out with at that time are no longer here today. due to drug overdoses, accidents, many other things. And the few that are still here today, at some point in their life, had gone through rehab and just very extensive programs to help them to become okay. So that is just a very small piece of, and we'll talk about this later, but after I was saved, the times in my life when I can look so far back in my life and see all of the times when God was watching over me, and the times that He was trying to redirect me onto that right path over and over and over again, and the times that He showed up in my life, even when I didn't believe in Him, or not that I didn't believe in Him, but I was not faithful to Him like He was to me.
No, we never have to worry about his part, right?
Yeah. But He's
Ah,
always there and He's always working, even when you're not following Him. And He's always
oh,
trying to call you home.
absolutely. That number you gave is staggering. I mean, because obviously, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but um, 80 to 90% of the people you were running with are no
Yeah.
longer here. That wasn't that terribly long ago in the big picture.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm 38. I'll be 39 this year. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about 25 years ago.
yeah.
I'm assuming when it was, wow. So let's fast forward a little bit. So tell us about North Carolina, new husband, daughter. Are you at this stage of life stay at home mom? Are you doing a little work from home? What are you doing besides obviously a very great thing and being a wife and a mother? Were you working any at that time?
I was doing a little bit of part-time work. I had my job here which was working at Best Buy. And so I had already set up that I transferred my job and to the Best Buy in North Carolina. And I had also enrolled myself in school at I think it's Coastal Carolina Community College. And so I had enrolled there to go into studying to be a radiologist is what I wanted to be. Growing up, that was my always my dream. I went back and forth between being a lawyer, which I may have missed my calling. I probably would have done really well as a lawyer, but it was either that or go into the medical field and be a radiologist. And I got there, and of course, at first it was all great, right? I loved it. But I learned very, very quickly how much I missed home. And one thing to know about South Louisiana is that I don't know the percentage, but I know that the percentage is very, very high of people who are born here never leave. And when they do leave, at some point in their life, they come back. Because there's just something about this place that you just really want to stick here. And it's a big family oriented state. So but I learned that very quickly how much I missed being home. And so I don't want to, if anyone listening is from North Carolina, no hate towards you whatsoever, but I was miserable. I really was. But I know that people can attest to this that Jacksonville, North Carolina is very, very small and there's not a whole lot to do. The only thing we were able to do was go to the beach. And so we spent a lot of time there. But other than that, I was so ready to come home. And just being in the military lifestyle is very, very different if no one's ever lived it before. And at the time that my ex-husband was in was during the Iraq War. The deployment that he was coming back from was his fourth deployment. And that deployment was really, really bad. They lost a lot of guys, and unfortunately, and when he came home, as well as the rest of his crew, a lot of them had to go through really extensive therapy just to recover from that. So it was difficult. There was a lot of things that were really, really difficult. And then he also had PTSD, really, really bad. So I guess picture the fact that I was 18 when all of this was happening, right? 18 going on 19. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and my husband comes back from Iraq and he is not okay at all. And if anyone's ever experienced being around someone with PTSD, specifically military PTSD, it's really scary to witness. Just the phone calls that I had with him, even while he was there, were very, very scary phone calls. The things that you can hear in the background, and some of the conversations that were had. But when they come home and they have that PTSD, they're also taught, he was a Marine, they're taught to not talk about it, right? And I think it's to help to protect their family. But when they don't talk about it and we don't really know what's happening or what's going on, there's a lot of really scary things that happen. And so that was also a learning experience for me as well. And then I also, before he got out, the year after, I ended up pregnant with my second daughter, my middle daughter. And so whenever we finally did come home, that was a whole different transition of having a newborn baby, as well as him still struggling with PTSD and all the things. So,
Life is coming at you fast.
yeah, I
Yeah.
lived a lot
Well,
of life very, very, very early on.
you did. And when does fitness come into the picture?
That was a little later in life. I don't want to say that I was never, because I started working out, and this will come up later in the conversation. I started working out with Beachbody, if you're familiar with that, which is now called Body, BODI. But before it was Beachbody, and they caught me when I was in North Carolina in 2006 in the middle of the night, night owl. I was watching, and remember those, remember infomercials. I don't know if they still have that.
1990s.
I don't watch TV anymore, but yes, hello, tell me you're a millennial without telling me you're a millennial. The infomercials in the middle of the night, and they caught me with their DVD workout program. And so I purchased my very first ever Beachbody workout in 2006. And that was really when what kicked off me wanting to work out. But over the years, it was kind of off and on. I didn't really get into really into fitness until I got pregnant with my third daughter. And that was in 2000. Well, I got pregnant in 2015. I had her in 2016. And that was when my fitness journey really, really kicked off.
I just tipped off my age, and I don't know if anybody caught it, but I'm about to tell on myself. So I should have. I said Beachbody. I remember some of those infomercials in the 90s. But see, you're not referring to that time frame because you've already talked about your husband coming back from Iraq, and we already know it's in the 2000s at this point. So
Yes.
anyway, I didn't even realize Beachbody was still a big thing, 15,
Oh
20 years
gosh,
later.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it is now. There's no DVDs anymore, obviously. It was before it was you buy one program on the, so if you wanted a different program, you bought the new DVD set, right? And so now it's a whole digital platform when you can get access to any and all of the programs. So things have changed so much.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're back in Louisiana. Now you have not just you have three now, right? Or not
If,
quite yet.
well,
At
when
this stage,
we got out the military, that it was just two. And because that was in 2007 or 8 that we got out. 2007, the end of 2007 we got out.
okay.
And so my third daughter, we had a big gap. So there's an 8-year gap between when I had my second daughter and when I had my third daughter. So I had my second in 2007, and I did not have my third until 2016.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Um, so what's going on with you? Let's say in this 2007 to 2016 time frame, what's going on with you far as your faith is concerned?
In 2016 and 17, I'll step back a little bit because in 16 and 17, there really wasn't anything. And I will always say that I never at any point in my life did I not believe in God. I grew up my very, very early years in Catholic religion. And I don't like to talk about religion, but I was Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I grew up in the Catholic Church. And when my mom and my dad split up when I was 4, he remarried. And that is when they started going to let's just say Christian, non-denominational, Protestant, that type of church, and they jumped around a lot. So I experienced a lot of different types of churches growing up. And it wasn't until during my marriage at some point when we tried to go to church. And during that time, it was there were some struggles in our marriage. And so that was, me trying that was going to help our marriage, right? Was that if we were involved in church more and going to church. And I think at that time in my life, I think it was a little bit of a few things. A little bit of the people that we were hanging around with and who we were going to church with, as well as the church and the pastor at the church that we went to, where it was unfortunately what we hear a lot of people talk about, especially in Christianity, is that you go to church and the people in the church don't act like you would think Christians would, right? And so that bothered me. And then there was a service at one point when the pastor said something during the service that I really did not like. Um, and I still to this day would stand on that, what he said and what he did during that service that day. In today's world, right now, today, I would have gotten up and walked out because it was not okay. But it really bothered me. And it was also kind of at that point where I was thinking to myself, like, this is not working and it's not helping my marriage. And so it just kind of drifted away. So there really wasn't much of that at all. Not that I didn't believe, but I guess there was just this, I don't know if I want to say angry with God or more so just questioning at that point, questioning, because I did have another later when there became anger. But more so just kind of questioning faith and questioning God and why are things this way?
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to eventually get to what you're doing now and who you're helping, but something tells me we can't get there until we know more of the story. And I feel like there's a worthiness or an unworthiness story that might be coming. Um, you've had a lot come at you, like you said, you lived a lot of life early.
Yeah.
Uh, Tell us about a time when you didn't feel worthy of love, respect, or success.
That was at the end of my marriage, my first marriage.
Mm,
I will say this, we were together from 2005 up until we officially divorced in 2017. So we were together, married for, or together for 17 years altogether. And during that time, now looking back, I believe there were several things that led up to this point, that unworthiness that I never really knew what it was until after the fact. Partially because I was very young, right? I didn't have the time in my life to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do in life. Very young, and if I step back for just a moment, before I even became a mom at 15, I did say earlier that my mom was divorced. And she divorced when I was very little. So she was a single mom with four kids. I was the oldest. She worked two jobs. And so I took care of my three younger brothers from the time that I was about 8 all the way up until I graduated and moved out. I was a mom to my younger siblings a lot of the time. I became a mom at 15 myself. And so I was doing that. And then again, I had my second daughter when I was 19. So with all that being said, and I also got married in high school during my senior year of high school. So I was sister mom, and then I was mom, and then I was wife, and not just wife, but wife to someone in the military, which is a whole other level of wife. And so I had to do a lot of that very, very early in life. So there was never any time for me to truly find who I was and my own worth and what I wanted to do with my life. And so ultimately, through a marriage that there were a lot of struggles, I found myself in a place at the end of my marriage, um, before I got pregnant for my last daughter, when I was unfaithful in my marriage. And it was one of those moments where this is horrible, but it's the truth. And so I have to speak it. It was one of those moments where I wanted out of my marriage so bad that in that really bad mental place that I was in, thought that if I did this, and now I'm going to tell you, you'll leave. So that way I don't have to be the one to say, I want to leave. And so that's what happened. I was unfaithful. I told him, like literally the next day, a day or two later, right away. And of course, he was devastated. But he did not want to leave. He said, let's work it out. And so we attempted therapy for the third time in our marriage. We went to therapy far away. We did all of that. Ultimately, not long after that, I ended up pregnant because that was once again one of my things of what's going to fix our marriage. One of the things he always wanted was to have another kid, and I did not want any more. Obviously, at this point, again, we have an 8-year age gap. I was like, we're starting
Right.
over. But that's what happened. And it was very shortly after I got pregnant with our third one that I realized during my pregnancy, I do not want to be in this marriage. I want out. And so after she was born, when she was 9 months old, we separated. And that led into 5 years of me trying to find Pam and realizing
Mm.
during that time, and I did not realize it until way later. And really and truthfully, I didn't really realize any of this stuff until the last 3 or 4 years of my life. But I realized during that time how little self-worth I had. And really digging deep and trying to find her. And while in some ways I was doing a lot better, I was working out, I was eating right. Because at this point, not only had I just had another child, but I was also very, very depressed at the end of my marriage. So I had gained a lot of weight. And so I was doing all the things. I was doing better with work. I was doing better as a mom and being present for my kids. There were so many things that I was doing better. But at the same time, I also, that was what started me leaning on drinking. Alcohol became an idol for me. It was the one and only thing that allowed me to detach from the stress I was dealing with of a divorce and trying to sell my house, which took over a year to do, and just trying to figure things out. Anytime I did not have my kids, I had a drink in my hand. And that was what led down that path of me drinking, which ultimately later in life became a big problem. I don't know if you have questions because I can just keep going all the way up until when, and what got me to where I am today. But that
Well,
what ultimately started and began the recognition for me of, feeling unworthy of when I really realized, how little self-worth that I did have. Because if I had any self-worth at all, first of all, I wouldn't have been unfaithful in my marriage. And then also, just in the things that I was doing during my single years, the way that I portrayed myself.
it makes total sense. I mean, you've filled in some things here, about the broken home, oldest of four, trying to be a mother figure to your siblings, and then becoming a mom yourself. I mean, it's one thing after another, right? Second kid, you said at 19.
Mhm.
You're married. You're right. Military lifestyle is entirely different from what I've heard. You have no idea who you are. And I can see where some of these things happened. And tell us about, because I sense it coming, and it's in your bio, so that helps me out. But there's a rock bottom moment coming. Tell us
Yes.
about that.
So a few years, so 5 years of being single, I met my now husband, and we were together and we got married. And it was still during that time when, and also I need to, because this is important, that during that time, in the very first few years of our marriage, I was at the top of my career. Because that is the other thing, is that when we got back from the military, the very first thing that I went into was I went into banking. And then a few years later, I ended up in mortgage. I've been a mortgage lender for over 20 years now. And I had finally reached a place in my life after doing mortgages for so long where I was at the top of my career. I was the number one lender in my where I worked, and I was at the very top ranking in the state, in the South region. I was more successful than I had ever been in my entire life. I was newly remarried. We had just built a brand new house. I had a very large circle of friends, and I was invited into every room, and every single room that I went into, I was the one who went around and I talked to everybody, and everybody hung out and with me, and it was always, "Where's Pam? Where's Pam? Where's Pam?" And so for everyone else looking in from the outside, I had the perfect life. And genuinely, I mean, even for me looking at it in that moment, and that's what I kept telling myself is, "Well, why are you so depressed? And why do you feel like something is not right and something is missing and your life is falling apart when everything is perfect? This is the best place in your life that you've ever been. You're making more money than you ever have, more successful. You have all the things, all the friends, everything." And I felt broken. I felt empty. I felt numb. I felt nothing. And so I just drank more and more. And ultimately, at some point, that drinking just kind of turned. And look, maybe it's partially age, maybe it was partially hormones. I don't know why and when, at what point that the drinking went from just Pam being fun, drinking Pam, to it was a raging thing where I would drink, and before it was I was 0 to 100, and so I was okay, and within an hour or so I was raging, and it didn't matter where I was, who I was with, anything. Everyone saw it, and that caused a lot of arguments between myself and my very new husband. And it ultimately, and then I would black out and I wouldn't remember anything. So that caused a lot of issues. And then there was one day that changed everything, and that was the rock bottom moment. And this was in August of 2022. So not very long ago.
Mm-mm.
I went somewhere with my coworkers after work. We were celebrating numbers and all the things. It was a celebratory um end of day, thing. And I knew that day because I said earlier in this conversation that I never drank with my kids ever, ever, ever. It was like a thing because I had 7-7 custody with my children with my ex-husband. And so when I had my kids, I didn't drink. It was like a switch. I'd turn it off. Didn't drink. When they were gone, I was drinking. This day I had my kids, and everyone always knew that when I have my kids, I don't drink. And so that day, peer pressure, and they were like, "Come on, Pam, just one, just one, just one." And I had one, and then I had two margaritas, then I had three, and then I had four. And my alarm went off, and it was like, it's time for me to go. And as I walked to my car, you have it was an internal battle of,
Mm.
"You shouldn't be driving." And I was like, "It's okay, I'll just take the back roads." "And you shouldn't have drank. You knew better." "I'm fine, I'm not drunk." And I got behind that wheel anyway, and I picked up my daughters, and they were ages 15 and 6 at the time. And I picked them up, and my husband called me on the way home, and he said, "You've been drinking." And of course I was, "No, I'm fine, I'm fine." And he was angry, rightfully. And when I got home, thankfully, praise God that I got home, um, I went into a drunken rage in front of my kids and said things that I still to this day do not remember and don't want to. Um, and it was in that moment when things settled down, and the next day when I had what I tell everyone was that mirror moment when I stood in my bathroom mirror and looked at myself and said, "Who are you?
Mm.
And what are you doing with your life?" And that was genuinely the moment that changed everything for me. That's what it took. It was all of the warning signs that I missed, Steve. It was all of the things that I missed that were leading up to that moment. The things where, like the brain fog, not remembering things, not being able to fall asleep at night or waking up in the middle of the night, not having any energy during the day, all of the little signs that were leading up to that moment, even just the feeling and the nudge that I knew something wasn't right. I knew that I had all of these things, but I felt at the negative self-talk, the mental image that I had of myself, the physical, when I looked at myself and the things that I told myself at that time in my life, even though I was so successful, all the things that led up to that moment. And at the end of the day, it was because I had built my skyscraper, Steve. I built it on a completely cracked foundation. And so you can build. And that's what I was doing my whole life. And I was building and building and building. And all I wanted to do was reach here. And when I did, on that cracked foundation, and everything came crashing down literally in my lap.
Yeah, when you were describing the forgot the term you used, but when you were describing that stage of life where the mortgage industry is going great, you're exceedingly hitting numbers,
Yeah.
new husband, happily married, starting to be invited into all the rooms, big circle of friends. That thought was going through my mind, but is her foundation ready for that?
Yeah,
You
it
know,
was.
the I can't even think of the term now, but the footers and all the foundational pieces weren't there to
No.
hold all that. And you were building up, but the cross was weak and it was going to crumble.
Hmm.
Um, and so who are you? That question you ask yourself in the mirror that night.
Hmm.
Did that lead to getting help for the alcoholism right away?
I put it down pretty much overnight. I didn't
Wow.
quit drinking right away. However, I am over 2 years sober now, but I did not quit drinking right away. However, I cut it to literally almost nothing. The few times that I did pick up a drink after that, it was where I was drinking very little because it was solely fear-based. I was scared to death to drink more than one drink because I knew what was going to happen. Even if I didn't have my kids, it was just this fear that was in me at that point, right? And it wasn't until the beginning of 2024 is when I officially quit drinking, not for any other reason other than I finally at that point just decided I didn't need it anymore. And it was after I had one night a month before, or just 2 weeks before that, really, where I had a few drinks. It wasn't a lot. I didn't get drunk or anything like that, but it was enough that the next morning I didn't feel great. And I was like, this, and it had been a really long time since I had done that. And I was like, other than having just that one drink here and there. And I was like, this is the reason why I don't do this anymore because it is not worth it for me to feel this way because it had been enough time that my mindset had began to shift. And so
Hmm.
it was just like I don't need this and I don't want it. And so it just I started 75 hard at the beginning of 24, and part of 75 hard is that you cannot drink. And so once I had gone 75 days without a single drink at all, I was just like I didn't have any and I didn't miss it, so what's the point? And so I never picked it up again.
You are so stinking strong. And I know you've had to be, but you are. I'm gonna build on that in a second, but for time purposes, can you tell folks who you help now and why you love it so much?
Yeah. now I can help anyone. However, my heart is for women. Um, Ultimately, at the end of the day, to help women first and foremost to know their worth, but that their worth comes from their identity, from your God-given identity. And when you can identify with that, having self-worth becomes very easy. But also from there, having that foundation and where to build from there. Because at this point in your life, you have all the things. You are probably married or have someone and you have children and you have a career. Maybe you have tons of dreams and goals and you have all of the things. And what I like to compare it to is women can relate to this is whenever we're washing dishes and we are stacking them and we stack and we stack and we stack and it's all of a sudden you have this pile of dishes and you place them so perfectly so that way they don't fall and it's like okay, nobody move. If
Mm,
I don't breathe, they'll stay stacked, right? And then you just and you know, you get that one phone call, "Hey, can you come help me with this?" You get that one opportunity that comes and you're like, "But what if when your plate, your stack of dishes or your plate is so overly full already?" And there's just this one more thing and you're like, "But if I just place it just right, I can handle more." And that is again when we all come, you come tumbling down and you hit burnout, you hit rock bottom, you but spiral into this anxiety driven or very depressed because you have just given yourself more than what your identity can hold. And so once we can figure out your identity and you know your self-worth, then it is being able to take those things and break them down not necessarily to take things off your plate because there are things that you probably need to take off your plate that don't belong there that should have never been there to begin with. But there's also a lot of things on your plate that you're putting all of your focus or trying to put all of your focus into everything evenly, and that's not possible. And so we have to figure out, you know, who you are and then what is your core responsibilities? What are you, your purpose in life, what you are called to do? And then from here, there's tons of those things, right? But then we break them down and you have to categorize those things and say, these are the things that I am focusing on that are going to get a little bit more effort. And then these are the things that I'm just maintaining. And so they get just that, you know, I'm just doing what I need to do to maintain them. And these are the things that I'm going to put on pause. And this is the category that is really, really important is that pause category is because you have that dream and you have that goal. And I'll, for myself specifically, is that I will write a book one day. I will start my podcast up again one day. I will host conferences one day. There's a lot of things that are on that list that I was trying at one point to work on everything all together. And I was just like, I don't know why. I feel like I can't keep up. And so those things are on pause. And that means that it's not you taking those out of your vision. It's just knowing and becoming comfortable with the fact that those things are just going to come a little bit later in life in another season. And then obviously there are the things that we need to recognize and say, this needs to go because it should have never been there to begin with. Right. And so it's all, I guess partially you can say it's part of boundaries, but at the end of the day, it's just being able to figure out your plate, how to organize that plate so it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Pam, well, I'm gonna say this. This is a quote that we hear often, but it so applies to your situation. God's delays are not his denials.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. And you need to go back and listen to the last few minutes you've been talking because you lit up like a Christmas tree. Your passion was so apparent. Your articulation was so focused. It's so clear that you are now in your sweet spot and in your calling. I'm so, so proud of you and happy for you.
Thank you.
And we're going to wrap this up with two questions
Okay.
that I usually don't ask, but I feel called to ask them.
Okay.
And I can only say this because you gave away your age earlier.
Okay. That's
Almost
it.
39, right?
Yep.
What would 38-year-old Pam say to 18-year-old Pam? Let's start there. And then I got one more similar to it.
I love this question. I'm going to say it two ways, and I'm going to say this because it's also something else that I do with women. You ask 18-year-old Pam, what I have women do is I tell them to bring, gosh, and I wish I had it with me because I would show you, bring me the one of the pictures from when you were little, 5 years or under, your favorite picture of you when you were a little girl. And mine is me, and I had my little puppy, and I was outside in the snow, which it never snows Louisiana, but and so I'm all bundled up and I have my little puppy, and that is my picture. It is on my board in my prayer room. And that is the little girl that anytime something comes up, another opportunity, a hard decision that I have to make, anything, that is that picture that I look at and I think about and speak to that little girl. And so whether it's that little girl or 18-year-old Pam, I would tell her, first and foremost, your past does not define you. And when you can see and connect with the woman that God created you to be, everything in your life, every door, every opportunity, every decision, everything in your life will just flow to you almost as if it is completely effortless.
Yeah, because he's leading the way.
Yeah.
And my follow up is what would what would Pam today, July 20th, 2026, what would Pam today say to Pam, 2022 Pam, staring at the mirror that night that you drove home intoxicated, that night that you were, for lack of a better word, raving and looking in the mirror, what would you say to her 4 years later? Take your time. It's okay. Just be you.
I'm trying to say like which one thing would I say to her? I mean, if I'm gonna play off your podcast at the end of the day, you are worthy of so much more than you give yourself credit for. You are worthy and capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for and than what you were doing. But I would also tell her that it just takes one step. You take one step forward and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And you are about to see your life change in ways you could have never, ever imagined.
I love that. I love that. Tell folks where they can find you and learn more about you.
Everywhere. Everything is going to be, for the most part, at the Pam Rivet, Rivet, on Facebook. Facebook is my full name, Pamela Rivet. Instagram, TikTok, at the Pam Rivet. My website is just pamrivet.com. That is where you can find all the things, whether it is for speaking engagements or if you're looking to work with me. I have several different things that are available, different workbooks or one-on-one coaching I am doing now as well. And I'm also on LinkedIn. You can also find me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I did a TEDx talk that is out there. My TEDx talk is all on burnout. And I tell that drinking story in a little bit more detail on there as
Hmm.
well. So all the places, just literally, and Google search me, honestly. Also, MBS, the Woman Beyond the Cape, is mbsfit.co. And on social medias, it's just MBS, the Woman Beyond the Cape. You can find us all there as well.
Awesome. We'll have all the social media links that Pam gave me. We'll put those in the show notes. And Pam, I want you to do me a favor once we have it all up. If you feel comfortable with it, and I'd like you to be the one to do this versus me do it, in the
Okay.
comments section of your interview, do you mind dropping your TEDx talk in there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll throw it in
I'd like more people to be able to see that for sure.
there.
As we wrap up, Pam, I want you to hear from me that I thank you for me, but I thank you for everyone that's going to watch this. Thank you for showing us your resiliency, your tenacity, your work ethic, your never say die spirit, but also the compassion came through, the love of your family came through. Your you didn't have to share as much as you did, and you were very vulnerable, and people resonate with that. And I appreciate that. So I thank you for being our special guest today. This has been incredible. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, the last thing I'm going to say, and I say it quite often, you just heard once again from another special person who God was not done with yet. And for those that don't know this, in the banner on our private Facebook group, the You Are Worthy Network, on the bottom left, it says your story's not over yet. Pam's story was not over yet. Your story is not over yet. You might be in the middle of some of the toughest chapters in your book, but also some of the best chapters are still to come if you hang on to him and you keep moving forward, because you don't stop in the middle of a tough chapter. You lean on him more, and then with expectation, you look forward to what he's going to do next. Appreciate each one of you. Till next time, God bless. Take care.